Well, hello there, you beautiful, beautiful people. I hope you are having a fantastic week so far. Now, we're going to get straight into the meat and potatoes today because this is video 1 of 3. Maybe 1 of 3. You're on a 3-day video binge today. So make sure you keep your eyes peeled because YouTube doesn't generally do us much favours when it comes to notifications. Gotta love it, but let's go with it. Anyway, we're going to be talking about Moscow, Idaho, because we've obviously been talking about Moscow, Idaho and the Idaho 4. And there's some cases that have sort of been in the background of this place, and I feel that they hold some relevance. Now, later on, I'm going to be talking to you about a University of Idaho professor who actually went on to murder a student back a few years ago. Now, bearing in mind that this place kind of pushes itself as a place that doesn't generally have issues. Now, we do know that they claimed that there was not a murder since 2015 before the Idaho 4 case, but that's not really the entire story in terms of the history of this area, the history of the university. And I think in order to understand what could be at play in the Idaho 4 case, it's important to understand the beast that you're dealing with and the players of the games, so to speak. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take you back to 2018 for this specific report that we're going to speak of. But make no bones about it, this is not an isolated situation. This is just tip of the iceberg. This is something that's seemingly ingrained into the University of Idaho and those that go through it. And what am I talking about? I hear you say. We're going to share this together. Check this out. Strap yourselves in. So this is a report done by the Spokesman Review, and this was in May 2018. And it goes, how can I say it? It talks about really how the University of Idaho operates, how they are willing to turn a blind eye, hide things, keep things under the radar, and how much power and clout they appear to have on law enforcement and Bill Thompson. So look, it talks about, let's not move that screen, let's come back over here. So Moscow, Idaho, the Moscow Police Department disclosed that University of Idaho student athlete was accused of sexual assault last year, contradicting a statement by the athletic director that his department has not had any recent issues with sexual assault. A woman filed a report with the Moscow Police Department alleging that she was sexually assaulted by a University of Idaho student athlete in November, the Moscow Pullman Daily News reported. The newspaper did not identify the student because no charges were filed in the case. The student athlete has not been removed from his team. Now, when I think about college athletes, I can't help but think about fraternities. Now, that might be wrong of me because of the fact that I'm over in the UK and I don't really understand it all, but it's just that vision that I get. And it also gives me thoughts and nods back to 13 Reasons Why. Some of you will know about this this series that they ran about a young girl who she went on to take her own life, and sadly, it played out that she had been sexually assaulted and she couldn't live with it, and this was the repercussions of such. But this report gives nods to that. It's almost like that is just the way it is, the normality of it, and it's accepted almost. But anyway, I digress. I will just say as well that not identifying the student in the UK, that have thrown you straight under the bus. Captain Tyson Barrett informed the Office of the Dean of Students and Athletic Director Rob Spare of the report, he said. Now, Rob Spare would go on to be sacked later, and we're going to touch on that. The police department investigated the case and forwarded it to the Latah County Prosecutor's Office, which declined to file charges. And I bet you can't guess whose name was connected to that. The prosecutor's office returned the case to police without charges because there wasn't enough evidence. said Bill Thompson, the county's prosecuting attorney. Spare's lawyer declined to comment on the November allegations, citing an instruction from the university's general counsel not to speak about the case. Spare told the Associated Students of the University of Idaho Senate on April 4th that his department had not recently had issues with sexual assault. Spare had been placed on paid administrative leave a day before, addressing the student senators amid allegations that his department had mishandled complaints of sexual assault and harassment against a football player in the spring of 2013. The university has hired an outside entity to review its handling of previously reported police incident involving a single football player in 2012 and 2013. And then we're going to jump over to here. Now, I don't know if this was to do with the exact same case, but this is basically the University of Idaho has reached a settlement in a lawsuit brought by a woman who said school officials told her to transfer to another campus if she didn't want to continue attending classes with a student who had sexually assaulted her. The woman was a graduate student at the University of Idaho's College of Law when she reported that she'd been sexually assaulted by a fellow law student while off campus in 2016. In her lawsuit the following year, the woman said she filed a formal complaint, and after investigation, the university did conclude that a sexual assault occurred. But, she said, while the investigation process was moving forward, and even after the university had reached its conclusions, she received no real accommodations. Instead, school officials told her to sit at the back of the classroom if she didn't want to face her attacker in class. So that tells you that they didn't even get rid of the person. Listen to audio recordings of the lectures at home, or move to another city to take classes there. You can't make this shit up. US District Judge David Nye dismissed the case last week after attorneys on both sides said they'd reached a settlement, the terms of which were not included in the court documents. The University of Idaho has faced scrutiny in recent years for mishandling sexual assault complaints. Last year, the school's former athletic director, Rob Spare, was fired following an investigation into how officials responded to several sexual assault and harassment claims made in 2013. In 2014, the university was among 55 colleges and universities under investigation by the U.S. Department of Education Office for Civil Rights for possible violations in the way it handled sexual violence or harassment complaints. So there you have it. So this isn't a new thing. This situation around Moscow, Idaho, and having issues between the university and students and how they're dealt with, and how the university obviously want to try and keep it as hush-hush as possible. And how does that impact on the University of Idaho and what we're seeing in this case and how it's being handled? I think it's important to understand that this university is an incredibly powerful entity. It is a powerful entity, and with respect of the Idaho 4 case, we look back to alternatives in what happened in that case, and we've constantly said, if Brian Koberger is somebody who is not guilty of this crime, or there are other players involved, there are other things that happened around this case, what is the community likely to do? What is the college community likely to do? How would they behave? Is this a community that would throw people under the bus and be out for the truth and deal with the truth and deal with whatever backlash they got because of it? Or are they the kind of entity to indeed try and protect who they are, to perhaps ignore certain things? But like I say, Moscow, Idaho, they're not quite as squeaky clean as people would try to push. This place does have an incredibly dark undertone, and you can simply go back into the history books and look at issues at University of Idaho, especially between students and you know, the boys versus girls, if you like, and back to what I said about the 13 Reasons Why, and the college lecturers getting involved with students as well. And, you know, it's. I think, for me, I think about the Brian Kohberger situation, how we've been led to believe that this person done it, and I wonder what the reasonings behind trying to push someone like Brian Kohberger could potentially be. And it always comes back to that Idaho trying to push the blame somewhere else. The issues and the problems that we're seeing is not something that's here. Idaho isn't the problem. The people of Idaho isn't the problem. The people that we have here at the university aren't a problem. This is somebody who came from away. They came from Washington over to us poor hillbillies over here and tried to teach us a lesson. And we've heard those exact words being stated. And that is as far from the truth as possible. You could, in fact, argue that, in fact, Brian Kohberger would be classed as more of a hillbilly than the likes of the Gonsalves family. You'll have to let me know down below what you think about those statements. But they have a problem. Idaho and this university have a problem that is seemingly ingrained into the foundations of this place. And things need to get better. And I do wonder whether, as an alternative to Brian Kohberger, there is something more closer to home, and perhaps the answers aren't too far away from the University of Idaho. And perhaps that's why we see certain families of these victims around this case being coddled by the system. So they show solidarity and support and saying that we're not angry with them. We're actually really pleased. We're lucky to be embraced by the fraternities and sororities of Idaho. And I've asked this before, is that solidarity misplaced? But let me know down below. And like I say, video 1 of 3. And in video 2, we're going to be looking back at the University of Idaho and something else that will absolutely shock you. I'll catch you all in the next one.